Good night. Good morning. This is George Thomas. I'm from the Akron Beacon Journal, Gannett. I'm with Steve Doerschuk from the Canton Repository and Gannett, Nate Ulrich from the Beacon Journal and Gannett, and Marla Ridenour from the Beacon Journal and Gannett. That was a long game. That was a very long game. That was a classic game. And I really think, and there's no other way to start it but this way, there's been some doubt all season, I think, but I think the Browns, I tweeted it this way: right coach plus talent plus the right system equals a quarterback. And I think the Browns have a quarterback now. I don't know how you guys feel it, but I'm putting it out there.
Yeah, I thought Baker Mayfield really showed a lot. And unfortunately for him, his streak of games without an interception ended. Avoided an interception the previous 5 games and threw one there in the third quarter. But before we hit record, you said you thought game over. And
Well, yeah.
I could see why you thought that. I mean, the Ravens are turned to the Cleveland one, and Dobbins ran it in for a touchdown play. They went ahead 34-20, but to the Browns' credit, to Baker's credit, they rallied, took the lead in the fourth quarter, and then they tied it later, and it was back and forth drama, as you said, instant classic. So, yeah, I think that even in this loss, Baker Mayfield did show a lot. So I agree with your opening statement, George.
George, I think this game by Mayfield in particular, probably the Browns in general, defense is a big concern. But as to Mayfield, he's kind of reforming the way I have to think about the Browns, and maybe a lot of us do, because we're conditioned for things to once they go wrong, they're going to stay wrong. George, I thought the game was probably over or teetering at the end of the first half when, in my judgment, Kevin Stefanski made a mistake the way he was calling plays. All they had to do there was run Chubb at the end of the first half when they had the ball in a 14-all game, and at worst, you go into the locker room tied at 14. At best, and probably likely, Chubb gets you something. You get a couple of first downs. Maybe you get a field goal out of it, and you go up 17-14. But when that didn't happen and Baltimore scored instead, I thought the game was over at that point. But then the whole flow of the second half and the whole vibe of the second half, especially that breathless fourth quarter led by Mayfield, reshaped the way I'm going to be looking at the Browns maybe from now on.
Well, you have to give Stefanski credit for being consistent, because he's been aggressive like that all season. From the opening game against Baltimore, he's played that way. He's not going to shy away from that, in my opinion.
But he has Chubb. I agree with you. I like the thought of passing off the get. The first play of the game was a pass. I like that, but in this situation, I thought running was called for, especially the way it turned out.
Well, they did at least go get Kareem involved later in the second half. I thought that was key, that they didn't really abandon the whole part of it. I keep going back to, what if Kareem doesn't score there with a minute to go and they have it at the 1 and takes more time off the clock? I'm sure that's going to eat a lot of people when they go to bed tonight.
Now, the fact that they came back, period, should be viewed as, and you mentioned it on Twitter tonight, it absolutely reminded me of that Browns-Jets playoff game from, what was that, 1986
season? Yeah.
That's what it reminded me of, because in that game, Kozar and the Browns looked like they were done. Tonight, they look like they were done. But see, you can't, in my opinion, you can't lay this game on the offense. They did their job. Couple mistakes here and there, but that defense and the defensive line, I don't recall what the average per carry ended up being, I had to be close to 6.
Ravens at 7.2 yards per carry.
That defense didn't come close to doing its job tonight.
Well, you're right, George. And we've known that there's been flaws with the defense. We've known that they live and die by the takeaway to a large extent. They have, I think, gotten better and stepped up in recent games, but Lamar Jackson can make a lot of people look bad and expose a lot of people. And let's face it, I mean, tonight he ran 9 times for 124 yards, 13.8 average, 2 touchdowns. And really, Baker Mayfield perfectly summarized this when I asked him about it. Lamar was out for nearly 2 series in the fourth quarter. He comes back in. He was getting treated for cramps in the locker room. Comes back in. It's 4th and 5. Baker Mayfield said it was like a scene out of a movie. And it was, and Lamar Jackson was the hero, and Justin Tucker also at the end for the Ravens. But my point is, the defense definitely has warts that we've talked about all season long, and Lamar Jackson isn't the one you're going to be able to hide him against.
There could be a price for Jackson to pay, though. There was tonight. He took a real hard hit when he didn't fail to slide. He didn't want to slide. I think they took a real gamble with Jackson tonight. Not that they were gambling, say, well, maybe let's let him run. I think they came into this game, the Baltimore Ravens did, saying, hey, Lamar Jackson is going to go win us the ball game, which, of course, he did. But the price you pay for that is, in the immortal words of old Sam Rutigliano, there are no old running quarterbacks. And he was out of the game not too long after taking a hard hit. And that's the worry going forward with him. You know, he's fantastic, and he can win you a game like this that nobody else can win. But how long is he going to be able to do that?
Yeah, I mean, that's been the talk about him all along. But, I mean, their backs were really against the wall in a lot of ways. They were the more desperate team tonight. And so I think, like you said, Steve, put it on the reigning MVP's shoulders.
I agree with their plan, Nate. I thought that's what that was a smart plan, but it's also risky in terms of you get your guy killed, if the wrong sorts of things happen in one game of trying that.
I'm with you. But, I mean, just for the George, I mean, you're a movie critic, sports writer extraordinaire. I mean, you had to been eating this up. I mean, this was the guy's 2nd game back from COVID. He's in the locker room. He comes out there. He looks like he's going to run and kill him with his feet, but then he just floats it over the defense, 44-yard touchdown. I mean, it was an unbelievable finish.
You want to, in all sincerity, you know what I thought of, and this movie really predates you, Nate, because you're like still wet behind the ears. A movie called Heaven Can Wait with Warren Beatty and Julie Christie. Classic film where Warren Beatty plays a quarterback for the Los Angeles Rams, if you can believe that, back when they were in Los Angeles in the 70s. So you should check that one out. One last question so we can get you and Marla out of here so you can go home. What the hell do they take from this? What can they take from this?
I'm still struggling with that on what I'm going to write when I get home. I mean, my question to myself is, can you gain something from a heartbreaking loss when you lose a classic, when you think about what happened in the opener, though, I still think you gotta see progress. But I'm still struggling on how much value this is. They got a lot to clean up.
We've been saying that all year too. But the thing is that here it is. Part of me, being from Northeast Ohio, thinks point blank they're on this roll right now. They need to lose one. That's just the mentality being from Northeast Ohio. They're rolling into December. Let's have them have a dose of reality before they finish up the season and look and go into what looks like the playoffs. You know what I mean? So, in my estimation, they get the heartbreak. They learn something that way. hopefully eventually they get Denzel Ward and Ronnie Harrison back. Hopefully. They really miss Denzel. I just can't see myself. I can't see him getting beat like that on that one touchdown on 4th and 5 from Jackson to Brown. I'm still, it still boggles my mind, and because it was so Hollywood.
But he's probably not stopping Mark Andrews there at the end. So,
Those are all good points, George. I do think big picture, I do think, and Kevin Stefanski and the players didn't want to go down this road. Stefanski said, I don't want to go down the moral victory road. I mean, fresh off that loss, I totally get it. I like that that's their attitude. But from my perspective, this is a step. I'm sorry, 38-6 in the opener. They didn't look like they belonged on the same field as the Ravens. It was that way with the Steelers too. It was something that we all looked at, this record with the 9 wins, and we said 2 of those losses were blowout losses to AFC North foes that have been bullying this team for a long time. To go down to the wire, for them to bounce back, like we said earlier, and take the lead in the 4th quarter, then come back and tie it again, and just the fight, I do think it's a step. And so I guess I'm, saying that, the Browns players and coaches throughout the week and the build-up to this game, to a man, said we are a completely different team than we were in week 1. And even in this loss, I proved that.
It felt different to me, Marla, Nate, George. And Marla, I probably see it a different way than you do, and a little bit more the way Nate sees it in terms of definitely something. What can you take out of this? I think a lot. If they win the next 3 games, and tonight's performance suggested to me that they absolutely can win these 3 more winnable games probably than the Baltimore game was, with Pittsburgh banged up the way it is. They win 3 games and go 12-4. They've been 12-4 once in their history. So that's something you can take maybe from this loss, use it as the impetus to win out and be 12-4, and we can all have a party.
Virtual party.
yeah.
Virtual party, yeah.
At least you're going to be, it looks like even if it's a shootout at the OK Corral, I'm with you, Steve. I still think they can win 3. I think it's feasible. We'll see.
All right, guys, we're going to be up late, so I'm going to let you go. I'm George Thomas with Steve Doerschuk, Marla Ridenour, Nate Ulrich. Big heartbreaker for the Browns, but progress is progress. Good night.
Good night.